Alright, in this video we're continuing with section 4.6 notes. We're looking at CPCTC, which if you recall stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So we're still proving triangles congruent, but now we're going to go one more step after that. Since the triangles are congruent, we know all the other parts, the other three parts that we didn't use, are also going to be congruent. So let's take a look at our given information. We have that M is the midpoint of YZ, and it's also the midpoint of WX. And we want to prove that Y is congruent to Z. So again, in order to do that, we're going to have to prove the triangle is congruent. So let's put our given information. I'm actually going to separate that into two pieces of information. So step one, I'm going to have that M is the midpoint of segment YZ. That's given. And then I'm going to put that M is the midpoint of WX. That's also given. Alright, and we know that when a point is a midpoint, it divides a bigger segment into two congruent segments. So I know that since M is a midpoint, I know that these two segments are going to be congruent, and these two segments are going to be congruent. So let's go ahead and add that to our problem. So since I know that M is the midpoint of YZ, I know that YM is going to be congruent to ZM. And my reason is definition of midpoint. And since I know that M is also the midpoint of WX, I know that WM is congruent to XM, and that is also definition of midpoint. So I'm going to write same as 3. You could write out definition of midpoint if you want. Alright, so far I have a pair of sides here and a pair of sides here. Let's go take a look at our picture since we've used all our given. And we can see that I have a pair of vertical angles here. We like vertical angles because they're always congruent. So I'm going to label them 1 and 2 just to make it easier to write in my proof. So step 5, I've got angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And my reason is vertical angles are congruent. That's a pair of angles. So we've got 3 pieces of information. I'm going to use my picture to help me figure out that the angle is right in between the two sides. The sides come together to form the angle, so we have side, angle, side. So I've got triangle YMW is congruent to triangle ZMX, and my reason again is side, angle, side, and my corresponding parts that I use to prove the triangle is congruent are from steps 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so now I use these 3 pieces of information to prove the triangle is congruent, which means that the leftover pieces of information also are going to be congruent now, and angle Y and angle Z are a pair of those leftover parts, so those have to be congruent, and our reason is CPCTC, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Alright, that's it for this video. Make sure you get all your questions answered, and we'll see you next time.